I'm in El Paso, Texas with my idol Scott Perkins, who came out with the 15-minute crown prep and the 15-minute root canal, which was the most controversial thing we ever did. And then I'm with an EFDA.
Hi.
And what is your name?
Tanya,
and she's an EFDA and about to marry this guy.
Hey.
And we're both from Kansas, so went to UMKC, and he's legendary on Dental Town, and he he was successful in business before he went to dentistry. And when I talk to DSOs or group practices, I don't even like the term DSO, it's just group practice or group practice multi-location. The number one stress the EFDAs have is they can't set up the burr block, because if they got 5 dentists working in one building, every dentist needs 50 different burrs. So, Scott, I want to, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely do.
So, Scott's burr block to do anything in dentistry is 8 burrs. So, Scott, take it away and tell them how to do a damn burr block.
Let me explain
And
this.
as an EFTA, if you call shit on anything, just chime in.
Okay.
If you go to Dental Town years ago, I wrote an article on this burr, which is a wheel diamond. And I called the article, "The Wheel Diamond, the most underrated burr of all burrs in dentistry." And so this burr is used...
Can I see it?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So diamonds are electroplated on these burrs, and the way diamonds dull is the diamond particles are either break loose out of the matrix that they're deposited through a process called electrodeposition, or they're chipped. So because of this wider radius, it takes a long time for these burrs to get chipped out. So if you're trying to cut off something like a zirconium crown, this is the best burr to just grind it away. Also, it's used for tooth flattening. Remember, I wrote the article, Tooth Flattening, Dentistry Today. So if you're going to flatten a tooth, use this burr to flatten a tooth with before you do an endo. Then I've got a large medium chamfer, a medium chamfer, and a narrow medium chamfer for crown prep. But I also use these diamonds, the small diamond, actually just for cavity prep. Then, remember the Samurai Precision Burr? I no longer sell it under that name, but you can buy it Speedster from Colteed Weldent. It's a metal cutter, and it's the only thing with a little slice through metal really quickly. And it can also be used for cavity prep. And then for composites, these days I just use whitestone, the flame whitestone, and then I think this is probably a tin fluted carbide tapered. That's it.
Now, see, what Scott's legendary background was when he came out with the article of 15-minute root canal, we got more complaint letters than anything in the history of Dental Town. It was just, and it was all endodontists saying, he's a hack. So it was 20, 30 years ago. We flew down there from Phoenix to his office in Houston and say, I want to see this guy. But what he did is, what you don't realize is, you drill, rinse, dry, drill, rinse, dry, drill. Just, if you don't know what you're doing, have your F to do it. Just hand her the high speed, let her drill it. But what he did is, on an endo, like you would put in the file, and you start to file with, like, I say, a 15. And then you take it out, rinse, dry, and then you change the file. You had, like, 4 slow speeds already set up.
Well, you would have to, the stops on your endo files. I identified, hey, what's taking so long to do these root canals? And that's because the doctor, the dental assistant endo is a spectator sport for a dental assistant. Dental assistant's watching you, and you're doing all the work, and you're, frantically switching these files out and measuring the stops. So, transferred that labor to the dental assistant. Instead, we have all of these files that are preloaded into these cordless electric handpieces. That way, the doctor, his job is to just focus on the endo, keep his hand down, don't reach. The dental assistant is lifting instruments out of his hand and putting them back in. She's also measuring the stops, and the files actually aren't switched because each file, the ISO codes that are on the files are the handpieces are color coded. And at that time, mine does different now, but back then we had these weaker files, and you had to use finer gradations between the file sizes, and so we've got 10, 15, 20, 25.
Can I add something to that?
Sure. No, you're from Kansas.
So
they've had enough Kansas bullshit.
As somebody that's been out for a while,
tell me your name.
Jake Wolf, and Perkins came over to my office the first time I ever separated a file. and he helped me bypass the file and finish the root canal. And he's worked with me hands-on a couple of times over the last decade. I guess, how long have we known each other? 7 or 8 years?
7 years.
Okay. But the big take-home is that he's not doing anything that's superhuman. He has really good hands, but he's more organized than anybody else. And I think I see old Scott Perkins threads on Dental Town, and I talk to people. We go into offices and help with implants sometimes, and the biggest thing is the whole team doesn't know the procedure. They're not on the same page. And so when we have externs come to the site and they're doing their assisting hours, we make them watch the 15-minute crown prep or 15-minute molar endo on YouTube, not because we want to see what Perkins was doing in the 90s, but because we want everyone to be on the same page. And you can see how it's like you're conducting a symphony. Everybody knows their part, and it's very calm, and it moves quickly, but not fast.
We're not
It's
trying
just
to go
efficient.
fast.
Yeah, it's just efficient. But that's I think the best tip I've ever got.
So you practice in Las Cruces, New
do.
Mexico.
Yep.
And does your mother live in Las Cruces?
No,
How far? Where does she live?
at 3.5 hours north.
Mine
Oh,
lives
because I'll tell you the best part about marriage is you have a new research monkey to try new procedures on.
Yeah.
The first sinus lift I ever did was on my mother-in-law.
Mine was on my uncle.
Yeah.
They say the best dentists have the biggest families.
Wow. So
More people
this might have flew over your head, but when these guys say a 15-minute root canal, and you say, oh, well, that must be low quality. Or a 15-minute crown prep, you say, oh, low quality. What you're not realizing is that if you do a crown prep in 15 minutes or 15 days, you're only actually doing something for 15 minutes. So the endodontist says, well, you could do a quality root canal in an hour. Well, dude, for 45 minutes that hour, you weren't doing anything. You were changing files, you drill, rinse, dry, look, drill, rinse, dry. So if you just know what you're doing and set it all out, you can just knock it all out.
Right, and dental assistants are going to ask the same question that I asked Perkins when he was telling me, I want to be in the mouth and not have to look up. And I'm saying, well, how do I give you another file when you have the rotary file? And he said, well, how many hand pieces do you have? Well, we have 2 in our office. So then
Endo hand pieces.
Endo hand pieces. So I'm switching out the rotary handpiece.
And that makes sense
Yeah.
because in the Fortune 500, when you buy something, anything in America for $1, 55 cents goes to labor. And the S&P 500 averages 55% labor and 5% profit. So these dentists, after they pay themselves, which national average is 65% overhead, so 35% is the dentist cost, 25% is the staff cost, then you have 10% for then you have lab, 10%, you have supply, 6%. And what's he saving? He's saving on endo files. And because he thinks it's cheaper to have a human, the 55 cents of every dollar running around the office. You know, when I was young and started my office, I was filled with piss and vinegar and was kind of an asshole. I got one of those, you know, those horn blows that from the Phoenix Suns game? Whenever my assistant had to leave the room, I'd tell the patient, cover your ears, and I'd roll my chair back into the hall and go, "Ah!" And then my office manager, and I'd say to my office manager, if you were having a bypass, how many times would you want the staff to leave the room? Why is she leaving the room? Oh, well, we only have 2 endo high-speed deals.
Yeah.
How much is the root canal? $1,000? How long are we going to practice? 40 years?
Yes.
How far up your ass is your head? Can I help pry it loose? So
so
your
true.
cost is
So
labor.
true. It's
So you
labor.
buy anything that makes your number one cost people.
Exactly.
Doctors are the most expensive. They're 35% on average. Staff next is 25%. So how do you save money on supplies when it slows down your staff? So I want to finish on this. Whenever I go into a group practice and I talk to the EFDAs, they always say the most stressful thing is the Burs. Because if you got 5 dentists and all they're going to do is a crown prep, and what's the difference between a crown prep and a filling? And they say, can you guys agree on 5 Burs? They almost all quit. I mean, they can't get down to 5 Burs.
So true.
Same with impression materials. Like they'll say, well, I can't use that bonding material. I don't like the 3M one. I like the GC. And it's like, okay, so 3M sells $1 billion worth of bonding agent, and it's what, not gluey enough for you? And they sold them all to people with 8 years of college doctors. So they sell $1 billion of shit to people with 8 years of college, but it's not gluey enough for you. It's called a therapist. Go see one. So how do you get 5 dentists to agree on a bonding agent in Burs?
Yeah, I think you have to get everybody to sit down and go through the process together. And if they develop it together, I think they'll end up with the best result and the fewest products. But I mean, having expired products, having stuff in drawers, none of it makes any sense.
And the drawer thing is crazy. I mean, if you walk into any Southwest Airlines plane, because in Southwest, every plane's the same.
Yep.
Whereas all the non-profitable ones, they have 747, 737, 720. Every plane's a 750. Every plane at Southwest, 737 Boeing. So they only have to have one set of parts, train the mechanics one way. But when you go into a dental office with 8 operatories, every operatory is set up differently. So then you want to pull a patient out of hygiene because you got to take her to your room. And I'm like, no, keep her here and send the hygienist to another room. And the hygienist's like, I can't go to another room. This is my room. And it has a Garfield in it. And I can't leave. And if they ever fell in love with the room, I would ground my patients from that, my staff from there. I say, sorry, Scott, but you fall in love with the room. And it's because you're married to this lovely here, you fell in love with a room, so I'm gonna have to break this up, and you're not allowed to see this room for a month. And what I want is when all 8 rooms are a 737 Boeing, you can walk in any room and know that the third drawer on the bottom, everything's the same. And that's logistics, and that's what you did. Tell them about your background in logistics. You did
super boring, but I worked for a third-party logistics company before I went to dental school. That we would work with big companies like Frito-Lay, Unilever, and they would have freight that needed to be shipped. And we might bid on 20,000 truckloads of butter going from Olathe, Kansas to California somewhere. And they'll deal with us because that was a Fortune 500 company. And then we would individually sell off pieces of those and individual loads to trucking companies that might own 1,000 trucks or they might own 1 truck. And then we would keep the profit in between there. But
now,
it's
when you came from the logistics business, did you see the same degree of organization in dental offices?
No,
or did it shock you?
It's terribly unorganized. Every dental office we've ever been in. I'm finally getting to the point in my career where I'm helping mentor some people, and we're in other offices. And what you see is it's a terrible trend, but nobody's organized and nobody's on the same page. There's so much wasted movement and just the way inventory is stored versus where it's utilized or how it's counted. We've just never taken the time to think about that. And I always think when I listen to your podcast, I've heard you say 100 times about people asking you in a big room, what's the best bonding agent? And they haven't even taken the time to organize how the stuff they use every day works. They're too worried about if they have 5 megapascals more. I mean, it's just silly. And I think that we haven't got out of that mindset as dentists, as people. We need to look at it like it's any other industry.
Okay, then we're gonna stop here and make another video on trying to answer the question. I had a vasectomy, so I'd never have any more kids, but they keep showing up on my schedule. So we'll solve that in the next episode.